And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive, I guess, which is something that I basically never say. That's a really weird intro for me. I even made a strategy show run sheet. I didn't even change the title of it. I'm just not used to doing a deeper dive. But yet, here I am. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Rinpack, and we are here to break down what I believe and what Rinpack also believes. This is probably the final 4-game slate of the NBA season. Kind of a bummer. Maybe we'll get lucky and get another 3-gamer, depending on how some of these series go. But this is going to be it for legitimate size slates. How's it going, man?
It's going well. Yeah, the first round's going by quick, and obviously we saw the Bucks do quick work on the Heat, and the Sixers are about to do some quick work on the Wizards. But there's some these games are more interesting in terms of matchup wise, more intrigue, more star power in today's matchups. And it's a nice 4-game slate that go pretty much around the clock, pretty much all the way to the midnight hours across the time zone. So I think it'll be a fun 4-game slate to talk about.
I'm excited to do so. I hope everyone that is watching right now, all 265 plus of you, can just hit that like button. It helps us out a ton. Find that thumbs up and hit it. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. And shout out to No House Advantage for being the presenting sponsor. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but I think we just need to dive into it. We got a lot to talk about. We've got NBA Live Before Lock coming up immediately after this. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
Let's do it.
Knicks and Hawks, first game up on the day, 1 p.m. start. Hawks 4.5-point favorites, 209 total for Atlanta. And we can start on the Knicks side. Is Julius Randle going to wake up?
Who knows? The guy looks like he lost all his powers after he won the Most Improved Player of the Year award, and he's been terrible, absolutely terrible. This is like the worst basketball he's played all year in the most important games. And Julius Randle, I think, has been bothered by DeAndre Hunter being there. I mean, is that what's the reason why he's being slowed down? Are they like pressing on him a bit more? 2 of 15, 5 of 16, 2 of 7 from 3. He's only gotten to the line single digit amount of times in all 3 games of this series. I think Julius Randle, is he due, or is this the matter of the matchup? It's tough for me to really see what's happening with him. He's just not been as aggressive as he was all regular season long. Thibodeau's playing him less than 40 minutes. Man, it's been tough to see Julius Randle play like this, and the Knicks faithful have been really disappointed by his performances. And he has been obviously the headline of disappointments. I mean, Derrick Rose is trying to carry this team on his back, but it's just been Rose and no one else really showing up for this Knicks team.
I think that it's a twofold answer. One, I think playing 40 minutes a game during the regular season allows you to accumulate a lot of stats that make you look better to people than you really are. And you get to beat up a lot on second units of teams that aren't preparing for you. Secondly, you get teams just specifically preparing for you because no one's out there thinking, how do we slow down RJ Barrett? How do we slow down Reggie Bullock? He's getting the full bore of this. The Knicks offense has been bad all year. And when you get a team that can actually game plan for you and you don't have the margins to squeeze out like you did in the regular season, things stop looking good. That's my guess. And I think
that's more like, I think that's more what's happened. Nate McMillan and the coaching staff probably made sure it's like, all right, we're not going to let Julius Randle go 12 of 25 every game from the field and get to line double-digit times. And I think they want guys like Reggie Bullock, RJ Barrett, and Taj Gibson, Nerlens Noel to come out and beat you. And that's what kind of has resulted in Julius Randle's disappointing performances, DFS-wise and real-life basketball-wise. But now that price tag is now sub 9K, we haven't seen him. 9,100 and 8,900 on DraftKings and FanDuel. Where on FanDuel we're rostering too, I'll have more interest there. But on DraftKings, I would rather try to find some extra salary to spend up some other guys who've been performing all series long. And I think Julius Randle's coming in the low teens right now. If you're coming in with the field, it's fine. I think I'd be even willing to go a little bit under just based on this performance. Maybe I'm getting bit by the tongue of recency bias, but that's how I feel about Randle today.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan either, whether that's FanDuel or DraftKings. I actually think he's getting a little bit over-owned on FanDuel. We do need to talk at least a little bit about the guy that is picking up the most ownership. And to me, it's not all that surprising. And I agree with it. Derrick Rose is 7,100 on FanDuel, 6,800 on DraftKings, moved into the starting lineup for game 3. Can't imagine he's getting pulled out of it for game 4. I've got him in for 38 minutes. To me, he's pretty clearly the best Knick that you can get to. Do you have any qualms getting to Rose today?
No issues whatsoever. Coming in at 6,800 on DraftKings. Over there on FanDuel, he checks in at $7,100. Both are solid price points. If he's going to play up to 40 minutes of D Rose, and he's now the lead offensive dog for this Knicks team. Obviously 13 of 21, not like I don't expect him to shoot that efficiently, but I do expect the free throws to go up if he were to drive to the line more. So I think he's in very good position to obviously pay off that salary tag and then some on a playoff slate. So I really like Derrick Rose at that price tag, barring any foul trouble. I think he's a solid starting point for many lineups on this 4-game slate.
We are on the same page there. After that, your guess is as good as mine. It's quite the grab bag of random Knicks. RJ Barrett, Reggie Bullock, Alec Burks. Good luck figuring out which one of those three guys is going to be the guy today. Is it Taj Gibson day? Is he staying in the starting lineup? Is it Nerlens Noel day? Are they moving him back to the starting lineup? Noel gets there in the last game based on a wealth of free throws. Can't really expect that to happen again. How are you managing the rest of this Knicks team?
So if you were to roster Knicks, if you're playing both on DraftKings and FanDuel, they're just a lot more appealing on FanDuel to me just because of the game, the way it's presented there. So I'd rather take some chances on some Knicks over there. But if you want to take your chances on a guy like Alec Burks, who can he's a pure tournament play. Sometimes his minutes are fluctuating in the mid-20s, sometimes 30. He's a guy who can take double-digit shot attempts and get hot. That's the guy I think I'd take my chances on. And RJ Barrett, I thought would just be getting more minutes. His minutes have been reduced this series. He's not paying the upwards of 30 minutes like we saw in the regular season. And they've been kind of sprinkled around. Obi Toppin is finding his way to play double-digit minutes in the playoff rotation for some reason. So like you said, it is a tough to pinpoint there. And I think I'll take my chances on a guy like Alec Burks over there on DraftKings 5,100 and coming in at 5,100 on FanDuel. I think he's the other Nick that I would go to outside of Rose, but that's how I feel about this Knicks rotation. It's tough to pinpoint them. They're just not an effective offense, not an efficient offense of late. And I think there's a good chance they go down 3-1 heading back to the Garden.
I wouldn't mind seeing that happen, but I don't want to be too mean about the Knicks. I don't have very much interest in watching the Knicks play. I'm really curious to see what they do in the offseason. If they throw a large offer sheet at a guy that doesn't really deserve it because they have money, that's going to be fun to see.
So DeMar DeRozan's going to be a Knick?
He'd be really good for them in the regular season. They're not going to win anything if they have him, but he would really help this team, as weird as it sounds.
They're going to throw 25 mil at Duncan Robinson. No, that's probably not going to happen, but it could.
Oh man, it's probably closer to true than false, honestly.
Yeah, you never know with that. I don't know how I feel about Leon Rose in the front office. I guess the Knicks faithful probably loves him right now after this one season, but they got to figure things out. This team is, I guess, like overperformed all season long, in my opinion. And I think the matchup worked out for them where they could have extended this series to 7 games, but they really need to win this game to make that happen, in my opinion.
So what if the next guy to come to the Knicks plays for a team that plays at 9:30 tonight? What if Paul George is the next Knick?
What would the trade need to happen? I mean, he signed that extension, right?
He did.
So you're going to have to send back who on the other side?
So you think if the Mavs, just hypothetical speaking here, if the Mavs win this series, are Paul George and Kawhi Leonard a tandem on the Clippers next year?
They're a very, very, very good tandem. They're a borderline elite tandem, in my opinion. I think they have gotten way too much hate in this first round. I think they go on to win this series. So yes, I do think I still am a believer the Clippers come out of the West. And I think they'll be a tandem if they come out of the West this season. So I think they are together in the fall. I believe October they'll start the NBA season again. It's really going to take. They're going to have to lose in the first round for that to break up. Even if they lose in the second round, I still think they come back.
I agree.
Kawhi Leonard just doesn't want to leave California. It just seems pretty obvious that was like his whole intentions of getting to California at some point. And I think they are going to be together in the fall. I just don't see them breaking up if they come out of the West, which I think will happen.
Hypothetically speaking, just to put this out there, Paul George is represented by CAA. So
okay, yeah,
some connections slightly to Leon Rose. I don't think he would end up to the Knicks. I think the more likely scenario is that Kawhi would end up in Miami, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, that's been the rumor after this Heat team lost. But I don't know. This Heat team, I also thought last year overperformed, got hot at the right time. They were not a very good team. I actually thought one of the worst teams ever to make the finals. But That was last year who I thought about this that Heat team. And they showed out they're not that good. They were a Giannis ankle injury away from not being in the finals last year.
And by the way, Milwaukee looking pretty damn good right now.
Yeah, really, really impressive. I was impressed. And they're going to miss DiVincenzo's versatility in the rounds to come. But man, if Bryn Form's going to shoot lights out like that, they're going to be in a good spot. That Nets Bucks series is going to be a lot closer than I thought it would be. So I'm looking forward to that series.
All right, let's touch now on the Knicks opponent for today. That would be the Atlanta Hawks. And to me, I think we got to start with the guy that I see as the best option today. We're talking about a value option, 4,600 on FanDuel, 4,300 on DraftKings. Apparently, there is no minutes limit to be found here. How are you feeling about DeAndre Hunter now?
Yeah, no minutes limit to be found in playoff DFS. If you can find a guy that's going to play mid-30s minutes and at that type of salary, you're going to have to take some chances. If you want to go over up the field, I think I'll be doing that, especially on FanDuel where we roster 2 small forwards. DeAndre Hunter playing 35 minutes is very appealing to me. 32 minutes the game before that, taking double-digit shot attempts. Yeah, I can't fault you if you want to go DeAndre Hunter, coming in a very solid value option on both sites. This Hawks team, kind of, I guess, underpriced a little bit. I guess in the playoff slates, a lot of these players are usually underpriced. But guys like Trae Young and Clint Capella, we haven't seen Capella have that monster game in this series yet. I like taking some chances on Capella as a perfect DeAndre Ayton pivot on FanDuel. But circling back to DeAndre Hunter, pretty solid option over there on FanDuel and DraftKings today.
Capella makes me nervous, although the $8K and $7,700 price tags are nice. Like, I like Capella a lot more on FanDuel than I do on DraftKings right now. But this game and this series makes me nervous for him because it's so slow. There's less shot attempts going up, and his biggest piece of value is grabbing rebounds. He has to basically monopolize rebounding in order to hit those same sort of heights that he would see in a matchup outside of New York. But center is a little bit different today. On FanDuel, the options are limited, to say the least. I have 6 guys that are functional: Eytan, Capella himself, Tristan Thompson, Taj Gibson, Nerlens Noel, and Andre Drummond. So that's not exactly a murderer's row. I trust Capella quite a bit more there, but I am just nervous in general.
Marc Gasol. The Marc Gasol disrespect.
I like Marc Gasol a lot. Probably not going to be a big Marc Gasol day today, is my guess.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time, but no, yeah. On FanDuel, we're rostering one, like you said, those 6 guys. If you want to mix and match around those 6 guys, I can't really fault you. And it's just that we'll talk about Eytan once we get there. But yeah, the reason we're rostering one, Capella, yeah, I could find a way to get some extra stocks, and maybe all he needs to is he could be the highest scoring center, and that's why I'm going to have interest over there on FanDuel for sure.
What else are you looking at for Atlanta? Trae Young, John Collins, Bogdanovich, Gallo. We got a couple different options here. I see Trae Young, Collins looking pretty similar relative to salary. Bogdanovich at 6,600 stands out as a pretty solid play, especially at just 11% ownership on DraftKings. How are you feeling about the rest of Atlanta?
Yeah, so guys like talking about Bogdanovich, Gallinari. I think about Gallinari on both sides is an excellent pivot off of this DeAndre Hunter ownership. I think Gallo could be one of those guys off the bench to take double-digit shot attempts, only playing mid-20s minutes. Those minutes can obviously go up to 30, like we saw in game 2. So, and Gallinari is one of those really, really good offensive players where he can get hot from the outside and just pay off that get that 3-point bonus on DraftKings power forward only over there. But he's an interesting pivot coming in at a little bit of low ownership, and on playoff slates like this, and guys like we're at that salary, can Gallo get 30 fantasy points? He could get there. That probably doesn't happen that often, but all you need it to happen is once in your lineups, and he could do that at that salary. I think Bogdanovich, also 6,600, makes for an excellent pivot. If you don't want to roster Trae Young, I think you can take your chances on Bogdanovich. The guy has taken double-digit shot attempts throughout the series, obviously gone 6-12, 8-21, and 7-15 in the series. I think that shot volume could be in the mid-teens getting into today. You love the minutes that he's getting. The rebounds have been kind of higher than I expected, so I don't expect that rebound rate, but he's an pivot. If you don't want to roster Trae Young at that salary today, 8,800 and 8,800 on both sides, honestly. So I think getting to a guy like Bogdanovich is not that crazy. He's going to be low on, but he has an upside of being a very effective on the offensive end today.
All right. Anything else for Atlanta and New York?
really tough for me to have any options. Guys like Kevin Huerter and Lou Williams, they're just not getting enough minutes, in my opinion, to really get there. Maybe Huerter gets there if you're rostering 2 on FanDuel, but that's about it.
Favorite Nick and favorite Hawk?
Derrick Rose, and favorite Hawk on FanDuel is Capella. On DraftKings, it's a Hunter.
There we go. I agree with everything you just said, so that's kind of perfect. Phoenix Suns at the LA Lakers, 6.5 point favorites for the Lake Show, 209 total. Oh, Phoenix. This is a bummer. I really wish Chris Paul was just fully healthy. It's putting a real damper on the series. It's just not fun to see. Hey, maybe Chris Paul will be the point guard of the New York Knicks next year. Who knows? I don't think he wants to leave Phoenix, but maybe the Knicks throw the bag at CP3. But for right now, CP3 is 6,700 on FanDuel and 6,900 on DraftKings, and I don't really like his health. Can you get to Chris Paul today?
I don't like his health either. The thing that happened in that last game was they were down, I want to say 20 points or like high teens points. And I don't believe played in that fourth quarter last game. So now, did they pull him because it was a blowout? Did they pull him for injury? I think it's a combination of both, where I do think those minutes can cross 30 today. And I'm willing to take some chances on $6,900 and $6,700 Chris Paul. I think his health is obviously a big concern, but I don't think I will be like with the field type of situation. I think I come in at around like half the field and I'll be fine with that. Just because if he somehow is feeling great, you're going to really regret not having him in some of your allocation in your lineups where Chris Paul is underpriced if he's healthy and ready to go. We just don't know what that health looks like. So he started off that first half great. He had 21ers, 22 fantasy points, respective on the site. So I just think that maybe those minutes can pass up to 30, and God forbid, man, I am tired of Campaign. I did not play him last slate, and he went on for 20 plus points in the final 4 minutes. And it was really, really devastating because I did not like Campaign heading into that game. And I don't like him today. I'm on the fade campaign. So
I'm with you. I don't really see him as all that rosterable. 5,900 on FanDuel, 5,400 on DraftKings. To me, he's a guy you should have in 5% of your lineups at best, something in that neighborhood. If you really want to get to him, more likely scenarios, I probably don't get to him at all. I don't really see it. The only way that I think that he can get to Campaign now that his salary is where it is if Chris Paul were just simply ruled out. At that point in time, I think that brings Payne back into play. But if I'm going anywhere for Phoenix, there are two options that are primary. Devin Booker, 7,800 on FanDuel, 8,100 on DraftKings, and DeAndre Ayton, 7,700 on FanDuel, 6,700 on DraftKings. Ayton on FanDuel should be obvious because of the names that I read off previously for eligible centers. But on DraftKings, 6,700 for a guy that's playing 38, 40, maybe even more than 40 minutes. He's really the only linchpin to keeping this team afloat because they don't really, it's not going to be Frank Kaminsky. That much I can tell you. Dario Saric didn't see the floor in the last game. What do you want to do with Booker and Ayton?
Yeah, Booker and Ayton, it's just tough not to love their minutes. 40-41. DeAndre Ayton staying out of foul trouble is really impressive against this Anthony Davis front court. And I was under the field on Ayton the last 2 games, and I kind of regret that just because I thought the minutes were not as likely to play around 40. And now I'm coming on the boat that it's more likely he's going to play 40 plus minutes barring foul trouble. So I'm back on board, and the offense has to go through Booker. He's going to shoot 19, 20 times a game. And obviously you want those peripherals to get there, but scoring alone, Booker could get there. He is a matchup proof basketball player. D-Book is definitely a solid option to go to on FanDuel, $7,800. I like that quite a bit as we've seen the other shooting guards like Paul George and Harden get their price tags elevated. Booker's has gone down. So I think going to Booker is probably my favorite son over there on FanDuel. DeAndre Ayton is obviously an excellent center option on FanDuel just because of the nature of like you said, six real guys that you can really take your chances on. But you really have to like Booker today. And hopefully he can get that offensive game going even more effectively, more efficiently, get to the line more. 17 times to the line. I don't think that's going to happen like it happened in game 2, but I think the 26 shot attempts are more likely in game 4.
Yeah, they're not really set up to have a bunch of guys taking shots otherwise. Ayton will get his share while he's out there, but Bridges, Crowder, those guys aren't shot guys. Chris Paul is not a shot guy, particularly when he's a little bit banged up. This is all on Devin Booker's shoulders. So I love the idea of getting to him. It could get ugly because this game could just simply not be competitive. But the price tag, that 7,800 and 8,100, he has a chance to really be a problem on the slate. And I don't think there's a lot of downside in those prices.
No. I definitely agree. And it's for him to, for him to not play 40 minutes, it's going to take foul trouble. I think Monty Williams is going to throw him out there, even they're down 15-16 with a few minutes left to go. It's the playoffs. They need to rely on Booker with Chris Paul's lingering injury. It's going to be his show. And if you don't want to roster DeAndre Ayton today, I get it. I just think the minutes are really tough to fade. That's how I feel about Ayton. He's not, obviously, the shooting efficiency has been amazing. 10 of 11, 11 of 13, 11 of 15. He's just getting easy putback dunks and just easy lobs. I just think the minutes are really good. And at that price tag, yeah, you'll just take those minutes and kind of run with it. Is that how you feel about Ayton as well?
Yeah, especially at that $6,700 tag on DraftKings. Like on FanDuel, to me, it's a different question. You only have so many center options. He's going to get 20% ownership just simply by default. There aren't enough options to do something else. But on DraftKings, he becomes an actual value. Now I'm going to say something that is really difficult for me to say, but it worked the last time I was pitching a backup center. Can you advocate at all for a flat minimum Frank Kaminsky today?
He played 7 minutes last game? No.
6.8.
6.8 minutes left. Can I advocate? Oh, God, that is
unowned DeAndre Ayton in a quarter of lineups. Now, I'm not saying that Frank Kaminsky should be your cash center or anything along those lines, but large field GPP, if DeAndre Ayton gets into foul trouble,
which is definitely possible. Again,
do they go to him or Saric?
That's tough to pinpoint. We saw Sarge early in the playoffs, the first 2 games, but we didn't see him in game 3, I believe, right?
Correct. He did not play at all in game 3 after playing 15 minutes in game 2.
And then we see Kaminsky. Honestly, yeah, I think on playoff slates like that, if you want to get a tad different in a few of your lineups, I think you can take a few chances, but a lot of things have to go right. But he does open things up for you to jam in some nice, expensive studs. And the center slate, the opportunity cost is not that high. There's not a reason where a center on this slate doesn't get more than 35 fantasy points. That could definitely happen. And all Kaminsky needs to do is put up 12, 13 points, which he can. And it opens things up where you jump the ownership just because you have a 65-point game from a guy like James Harden. You have a 55-point game from a guy like Kawhi Leonard. So that is how your lineup can open up. Now, is it getting a little too cute? Part of me wants to say yes, but part of me also wants to say no, not really, just because of this opportunity cost on center is not that great. And I definitely don't have any issues going there. But could it be Sarge? It could definitely be Sarge. That's where it gets a little confusing. And now can you mix and match them? Yeah, I think you could do that.
Yeah, that's the part that the Sarge piece is the part that scares me, because if there's a scenario where DeAndre Ayton plays 32 minutes today, just picks up, foul trouble at the beginning of the second quarter, loses out on a big chunk of run, maybe picks up a quick one in the third, and Kaminsky falls into, 14 minutes, something like that. Yeah. He's a fantasy point per minute guy. If that goes just slightly high, he gets to 16, 17 fantasy points. Could be a decent day. I don't love it. This is not a guy you should have a ton of, but if DeAndre Ayton is going to be fairly popular, I don't hate the idea of trying to get to the opposite side of that in a large field contest. It's not going to happen all that frequently, but.
And I think he's even a better play. If you're playing that Phoenix Lakers showdown, that's another, if you don't want to get that risky on the main slate, you can take your showdown single game chances on a guy like Kaminsky or Sarge, depending on how many lineups you're building. It's going to take me at least 100 lineups in the 150 to finally get to some Kaminsky, but that's how I feel about that Kaminsky situation. But I think we need to talk about the other guys. I just don't know. Cam Johnson, Jay Crowder, Mikal Bridges, a very, very tough matchup. These guys are just not producing at great fantasy levels. Are one of them even going to be good? I can't even say that in confidence that one of them are going to be good. Maybe Crowder, just because he's been kind of consistent with those high 20s minutes and kind of just producing all right. He obviously did get ejected last game for pushing Dennis Schroeder in the air. So go figure. I think Crowder's a fine option on FanDuel, but that's honestly about it. Cam Johnson, tough to go there, but has an upside from the outside. If you want to take your 3-point bonus over there, I'd rather play him on DraftKings at 3,500. That's how I feel about Cam Johnson.
I'm a little surprised. I mean, I guess it's obviously a price play. I'm a little surprised to see Cam Johnson being owned more than Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder, but Bridges 0.82 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days. Jay Crowder 0.81. I mean, these guys, you need them to get every single minute they could possibly get, and you need it to break well for them. I'm with you. I have a hard time wanting to pick through the rest of Phoenix.
Is Mikal Bridges giving LeBron James a tough time in the series? It seems like it's maybe LeBron's not going full throttle, but I got to give Mikal Bridges some credit for, like, I guess not you're slowing LeBron James down. It's been kind of impressive on that end for him.
Look, LeBron can go out there, have 25, 6, and 5 today. It'll look like a pedestrian LeBron line. The Lakers will win by 15. They'll be up 3-1. If Bridges wants to hang his hat on that, I guess he can have it. But I don't think that LeBron James is super worried about it. And don't get me wrong, I like Mikal Bridges. I think he's fantastic defensively, but I'm not reading into this one all that much. It's
all right.
If it's 2-2 and LeBron has a bad game tonight, we could talk about it a little bit more.
Okay. Now it's been interesting to see. He's just like going right at LeBron. I guess I mean anyone would, but to slow down LeBron James, it's pretty tough task to do, regardless whoever you are.
We have just over 1,000 people in here and only 165 likes. That's like a pretty terrible ratio as far as I'm concerned. All we're asking is for you to hit the thumbs up. It's pretty easy. Doesn't cost you guys anything. Helps us out tremendously. Helps me deal with my ego. I like seeing that number go up. So if you can, please hit that like button. As we move to the Los Angeles Lakers, a team that I am very much not fond of rostering on a day-to-day basis. To me, they are the worst team that you can get to of all 8 teams that are on the slate today. But we do have one piece of news that we do want to touch on for this game, because obviously Chris Paul is questionable. I expect him to play, and we know that he's dinged up. Are you expecting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to play today?
I don't expect KCP to play today. I think
okay.
They're going to just be like, we will rather get KCP get some rest. We'll ride it out with Wes Matthews and the likes of Horton Tucker and Kuzma around those minutes. And I think it's a left knee contusion, I believe, or quad contusion, if I'm not mistaken.
Left knee contusion.
Okay, so it's a knee contusion. KCP obviously is just known to play just so many minutes for this Lakers team. Doesn't do much on the offensive end. Now, if he doesn't play, I will be taking some chances on a guy like Wesley Matthews and Taylor Horton Tucker, Kuzma, because of their salaries. They don't need to do much on playoff slates. You don't expect them. You don't need them to go 7x, 8x values. Obviously, it'd be great, but you don't really need them to do that on a slate of these playoff slates. I think that value multiplier has always been kind of very fluky to look at, even more so on a playoff slate. But this team, if you were to pinpoint, obviously LeBron and Davis lead the way, and Schroeder are those 3 guys who I feel consistent in minutes. Everyone else on this team, with the question mark of KCP, it is tough to pinpoint where they're going to go. So let's say if KCP's out, the immediate beneficiary, I think Wesley Matthews picks up most of those minutes. We saw Wesley Matthews close the game last time, I believe. So he picks up the most minutes. Now, for some reason, if he doesn't get it, it might go to Horton Tucker. Kuzma slides in to play some maybe 3 when AD plays the 5 situations. So that's how I feel about this KCP situation. Now, if KCP plays, very, very little interest in a guy like KCP. We know he's going to be logging in a ton of those like Fitbit minutes, and he's just going to be running back and forth. But KCP on FanDuel can hit some threes and get you there with some stocks. But that's how I feel about KCP. If he's out, I will be looking to go roster some Wesley Matthews. And I think the way his price tag is, I think I might be just like having some Wesley Matthews like manually put in just to like have some of him, and like I can readjust just to make sure my allocation is a little bit higher than it would be if KCP were to be out, just because this game's the second game. That's how I feel about Wesley Matthews. But I think a low-owned Anthony Davis and low-owned LeBron James are options that we can definitely consider, just because when one of those guys are playing, they obviously have the upside of being the highest scoring player on the slate. And Anthony Davis coming in $9,500 over there on DraftKings. LeBron James comes in at 10K and 80 at 10.2 on FanDuel. field on him yet again today. It's burned me a lot more than it has this year, but I think we can go to Anthony Davis.
I'm a big fan of AD. To me, he's the only guy that I actually want to prioritize coming from the Lakers, whether that's 10-2 on FanDuel or the $9,500 price tag on DraftKings. AD is the guy that I'm looking at. I will likely be coming in with very little to no LeBron James tonight, 10K on FanDuel and 9,700 on DraftKings. A little bit more likely to get to him on DK, but I expect to be under the field number. I don't have much interest in KCP if he does play. I'm with you on Wes Matthews. If KCP doesn't play, it's not going to be a Drummond day for me. It's not going to be Marc Gasol day, as we mentioned earlier. I'm just not going to have much for the Lakers. I don't see them as a very good DFS option. By the way, I do want to hit on one piece of news that we got. Starting lineup for the Knicks: Rose, Barrett, Bullock, Randall, Taj Gibson. So Gibson staying in the starting lineup for game 4.
Yeah, I think everyone getting burned by Gibson last time around. We might see a little depressed Gibson ownership. If you want to take some chances on him, go for it. But it's Taj Gibson in a Thibodeau rotation, center rotation that's been tough to pinpoint this series.
Shit like that is so frustrating. Whether it's Taj and everybody wants Taj in game 2 or Noel in game 2, doesn't work. Taj smashes. And you get the Taj start, seems obvious. Noel smashes. Same thing for yesterday. Pat Connaughton gets named the starter for the Bucks. Awful. Bryn Forbes just makes every shot he takes. It's so frustrating to understand what the right move is, and immediately the opposite result happens. I hate it so much.
Yeah, that's very frustrating, especially on these playoff slates where you're looking for any sort of value to get in that extra stud, just because you feel those extra points go a long way. Yesterday was tough, obviously, with the Connaughton and Forbes situation where I kind of had to flip my ownership, and I expected Connaughton to get 6 to 7 extra more minutes. I think he ended up getting somewhere. He just didn't do much after the first quarter in terms of fantasy wise.
Anything else you want to touch on, Lakers or Suns?
No, Drummond is kind of just in play on FanDuel just because of the one center situation there.
Yeah.
Drummond can put up 40 fantasy points in 20 minutes. He can do that. That's honestly, that's all about it. If you want to, I really like Anthony Davis, and we'll be being above the field on AD, and LeBron James being low owned is a very excellent play as well.
Favorite Laker, favorite Sun?
Anthony Davis and Devin Booker. Not really a hot take, but if you want to get a little cute, Chris Paul and FanDuel is not the craziest play whatsoever.
I'm with you on Anthony Davis. I'm going to split my love on Phoenix. It is Booker on FanDuel. It is Eytan on DraftKings. But I'm with you either way. We do need to touch now on the sponsor of this show. That would be No House Advantage. And I'm giving you the goods here first. If you'd like to play at No House Advantage, we have everything that you could possibly want. Not only do we have No House Advantage projections for each of their player props, because we don't have to worry about fantasy points. We're worried about player props here. Not only do we have projections letting you know how frequently a guy is going to go over or under whatever that prop is, we even have optimal lineups for you. You have to do very little work here, and I think that you're going to build yourself up a nice little bankroll. They've got contests in NBA, MLB, football's coming soon. They're going to have NFL contests. They've got PGA contests. You can use the promo code Awesemo. You get a $20 first match deposit bonus when you do that. And again, we're giving you free projections and free optimal lineups. You're going to see some overlay in some of their contests. You're not going to find a better way to build your bankroll than playing at No House Advantage. So download the app in the App Store or go to nohouseadvantage.com and check it out. Win big with player props today at No House Advantage. And then finally, now would be the time that I'm normally telling you about free content. However, we don't have free content on Sunday. So other than No House Advantage, always no individual free pieces of content today. But we do have a pretty good schedule coming up at noon Eastern time, immediately after this show in 22 minutes, NBA Live Before Lock, Eytan and Eric taking you all the way to 1 p.m. Then we've got 5 p.m. NASCAR Live Before Lock. That will be the boss man, Alex Baker, and Phil breaking down the Coca-Cola 600. And yes, I know it's the Coca-Cola 600 because my wife is in attendance for the race. Otherwise, I would have no idea.
You've mentioned this to me before. Your wife goes to that event every year?
She does. This will be like the 12th year, 11th year, something like that. Last year, because of COVID, there was no Coca-Cola 600. Or if there was, there were certainly no fans. I can't remember if they actually had it or not. That was the first time that she and I had ever spent Memorial Day together.
Wow.
So, yeah. And Tony in chat just said, damn, Josh, the lady likes NASCAR. No, not so much. Does not follow NASCAR at all. This is just basically a weekend away to have some cocktails and have some fun. One of her best friend's father gets tickets, so they go as like a big group. But no, she's not a NASCAR fan. She's a drinking fan, and she does that in excess.
I've never been to a NASCAR race in my life, and I've heard they're really great events just to go once to and like actually enjoy it. Have you been to a NASCAR?
I've been to one. I went to a race at Pocono with my dad. I was probably maybe like a freshman in college, maybe a senior in high school, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it was the first time that I learned that my dad likes the wacky tobacco. Accidentally saw him hitting a pipe through a tinted window in a van door. He didn't know that I had seen that. And ultimately, it doesn't matter now, but it was hilarious to me at the time because we were both hiding the same affliction. Neither one of us were willing to tell each other. So it was kind of funny. That's my story. That's all I got.
Hey, that's a good story.
We are on to game number 3. The Brooklyn Nets, the Boston Celtics. I have been standing for the Celtics in game 1, 2, and I didn't feel real great about it going into game 3, but it actually finally worked out. And I'm going to be doing the exact same thing again today, but we need to start on the Brooklyn side. Nets are 7.5-point favorites, 228 total. And on DraftKings, once again, I have a really difficult time recommending anybody specifically from the Nets. It's either Harden, Irving, Durant being priced at a situation where I don't know how to pick between the three. So I don't think that any of them are all that great individually. I don't feel comfortable trying to figure out which value option out of Bruce Brown or Claxton, Blake Griffin, Joe Harris. I don't know who that's going to be either. I find Brooklyn to be really unappealing outside of $8,400 Kyrie Irving on FanDuel, who from a positional standpoint just kind of works by default. How do you try to manage this Brooklyn team that's, to me, really, really difficult to try to play in fantasy?
Yeah, they're really difficult to pinpoint in confidence because they have so many great options of having upside. So this is where I try to like mix and match my Brooklyn exposure. I got burned last time just not having enough Kevin Durant. I was very high on Kawhi Leonard on that slate. I thought I could do a lot with that savings. It happens you needed to have him or Tatum, and you would have definitely found yourself there. But I really have a tough time not loving that Kyrie Irving price tag. He's not come around in this series to say he has a explosive offensive game due. I think that's definitely in the works. You like his shot volume. You'd like him to take around 20 shots. I still think James Harden has the highest upside among any Brooklyn net on DraftKings with that triple-double upside. So I definitely think he's my favorite net over there. But Kyrie Irving on FanDuel, I think, is definitely an appealing option. And Kevin Durant just coming in very, very low owned. Tough not to love KD if he's going to be low owned yet again, 10-6. But it's an expensive 10-6, and he's been very solid this series and very efficient offensively. I think Harden is probably DraftKings favorite, and then Kyrie. And if Kevin Durant's low on it, I really would like to get some there, and just maybe getting in with the field I'll be really content with. But tough to not like other guys at that position who are cheaper than him. Over there on DraftKings, we talked about Harden's triple double upside, definitely in play at 10-5. Kevin Durant yet again also low owned. Those three are definitely mixing and matching. If you want to go the cheapest route on Kyrie, I think that's a nice option to go to. But the upside of James Harden is tough to pass up on.
On DraftKings, they have 8 guys projected between 9 and 16% ownership. So nobody's getting a ton of ownership, and everybody's basically getting the exact same ownership. I'm just having a lot of trouble trying to figure out how to play guys from Brooklyn right now. Somewhat like, to me, one of those big 3 guys are going to have a very nice game. They're going to almost be essential. Potentially 2, depending on how close this game is. But I have no concept of how to pick that guy. And then the same story, I find all of their value plays to be basically the same dude. Like I had Bruce Brown, Nick Claxton, and Joe Harris all show up in the optimal on FanDuel at the exact same percentage, 9.8%.
Yeah, there's a big thing here that Jeff Green is not playing in this game. So he was out
Yes.
last game, and I was, I guess looking back, I was overexposed, but I was well over the field on the front court, thinking that one of those guys would pay off, and happened. None of those guys really paid off.
Yeah.
And I would take my chances again on that front court rotation. I know their prices have gone up, but like guys like Blake Griffin and Claxton, if he finds a way to play 18, 19 minutes again, if he has shown that chemistry with Harden in the regular season, it hasn't really come around in the playoffs, but like finding those extra dollars, the center cost on DraftKings, like you said, the opportunity cost is not the greatest. I think being well over the field on Claxton is something I'd be taking my chances on. And getting a little bit of on Blake Griffin, as ugly as that sounds, is something that I'll be doing on both sites just because of the minutes need to be spread around. Blake got up to 25 minutes last game. So
Yeah.
he's just not obviously being aggressive offensively. There's no need to when you have three amazing offensive talented guys on your team. He's just more of a facilitator and screener at this point. But just the lack of minutes need to be spread around, and I take my chances there. We also saw Bruce Brown Jr. get the, no, Bruce Brown Jr. did not get the raising minutes. His minutes went down down to 15. But the front court rotation, I take some chances on. Yeah, and Kevin Durant has just been the best, a consistent offensive player in the game. I think he deserves a bit more love than I mentioned earlier, and he just has that immense upside as well. Going to be low if he's going to be the low on Brooklyn net. I think being over the field on KD makes a lot more sense now that I think it more deep, hardly about it.
Well, if anybody's watched the strategy show for games 1 and 2 and 3, you've heard me advocate heavily for the Boston Celtics. And spoiler alert, that's happening again today. Evan Fournier for 5,500 on FanDuel is my favorite option from Boston. I like Kemba, although that one is obviously scary. There are additional outside problems with Kemba, but at 6,500 or 7,100, still want to get there. Marcus Smart's been great. 6,400, 6,300, FanDuel and DraftKings. Love him. Think he's under-owned. By the way, I think Fournier is over-owned. I think Kemba's under-owned. Under. They should all be unders. Jason Tatum. Is he going to go for 50 again? I hope so. 10-5 on FanDuel, 9,800 on DraftKings. Tristan Thompson, probably going to see a very large uptick in minutes. Likely not going to be seeing Robert Williams. Sprained his ankle. 5,900 on FanDuel, 5,200 on DraftKings. I'm saying it again. I want to go all the way back to Boston, play these guys aggressively. What do you think about the Celtics?
Yeah, tough not to like him. I'm probably less inclined to be on Jason Tatum just coming off a historic 50-point game. I think I'd be coming under the field just because of think a recency bias ownership will be high, but it's a good play on paper. It's a good play on the math. Looks really good for him. Everything grades out to be good. I just think I'd be willing to take my recency bias approach here, being under the field on a guy like Tatum. Hopefully the people priced around him pay off better than he does. Just taking some chances in tournaments. If he's a great play, do not get me wrong here. I think Tatum's a great play. There's no Robert Williams today. I believe Robert Williams is doubtful. So Tristan Thompson played 30 minutes last game, was put up 19 real life points. I don't expect that to happen again, but I expect the minutes to be somewhere around there. I expect there's going to be a ton of shots in this game. Tristan Thompson is a solid center option. He's going to be kind of like a lot of sticker shock seeing Tristan Thompson priced that high. It's been some time, but Tristan Thompson, $5,200, $5,900 on FanDuel. He's a solid option. With no Robert Williams, we saw Grant Williams also play minutes, 11 minutes last game. There's a chance he could play a bit more with no Robert Williams. The min salary on FanDuel, 3 min salary on DraftKings. He's not the craziest min salary play. We've touched on some of them so far in the slate. He is in play. Romeo Langford had probably his best game as an NBA professional last game. And that's just how disappointing his career started off, mainly due to injury. But 27 minutes out of kind of the blue. I don't think that's going to happen again. I don't know why he played 27 minutes. Is it foul trouble for Kemba? No. Maybe foul trouble for Kemba Walker is the reason why that happened. But I think I want to be above the field on Kemba Walker today just because he's a much better offensive player than he's shown. 3 of 14, 5 of 11, 5 of 16. I'd like him to take around 20 shots this game. Hopefully that happens. 7-1, 6-7 I believe, not sure, was easy 6,500 on FanDuel, an elite play, I think, on FanDuel at $6,500.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Both he and Fournier standing out most to me on FanDuel. You touched on Romeo Langford. I put him in for 24 minutes at 3,300. I think he'd be the guy that I'd be willing to take a shot at. Grant Williams, even in a decent run at 3K, still doesn't grade out all that well for me because he's just a pretty terrible fantasy player in general, but the minutes are going to be there for him. I don't think that they dust off like Luke Cornett in this series. I think he would get picked apart by Brooklyn. So I'm expecting Grant Williams to pick up a few of those extra minutes that originally went to Robert Williams in game 3. But when it comes to the actual starters for Boston, I'm loading up on all of those guys. I'm a very big fan. Think they're underpriced, especially if Brooklyn's defense is going to be bad like it was in game 3. If Boston keeps this competitive, you're going to need some Celtics. Yeah,
I completely agree with you there. And they're all coming in at an ownership where it's not that hard to get above the field at their ownership, and they all are grading out as very solid options. And in terms of ownership wise, I think Kemba Walker being the lowest owned and has a great upside within him is probably my favorite Celtic on both sites.
Well, then I don't have to ask you who your favorite Celtic is, but who is your favorite Brooklyn net in this game?
Oh, Kyrie Irving on FanDuel, James Harden on DraftKings.
Okay. We've got about 10 minutes to go here. Let's close it out. The final game of the day, in my opinion, the most important game of the day. Los Angeles Clippers at the Dallas Mavericks. Mavs are 3-point dogs at home, 221 total. And we do have one piece of news that I guess two pieces of news that we need to deal with. Serge Ibaka is questionable for this one. I don't really think that matters all that much. Luka Doncic, also questionable. I would be quite surprised if Luka did not play in this game. I'm going to assume that you have Luka in, but what are your thoughts on Ibaka from an injury perspective?
So even if Ibaka's active, there's a chance he doesn't touch the floor.
Yeah.
There's a chance, but there's if he's active, I do think he finds a way to like maybe 8 to 10 minutes a run. But Luka, I do think will play. It's going to take a lot for Luka Doncic not to play in this game. He finished the game last time out. I was reading into what that thing looks like. The way there's like a lot of Twitter doctors out there analyzing that injury, and they think it's some sort of pinched nerve type of situation that's happening with his arm. That's with the upper and I believe it was his upper right back. So the shooting side back was injured. So I was looking into seeing what they thought of that, and it's more of a pinched nerve. And Luka Doncic has been absolutely sensational in this series. He has been amazing, and I still think the Mavs will lose this series despite Luka Doncic's amazing play. And just like last time, I was so heavy on the Clippers. I'm going to be pretty heavy on the Clippers yet again. $9,200 Kawhi Leonard and 10-3 over there on FanDuel. Yeah. I have quite a bit of interest in Kawhi Leonard yet again, and I have a lot of interest in Paul George. Again, the minutes are in the 40s. They've been treating these games as kind of must-win situations. The front court has been a disaster in terms of fantasy production. Shout out to Marcus Morris. Marcus Morris obviously getting the T for pointing that gun shot, for hitting that 3 to win the game at the Mavs bench. Kind of a moron move on his part, but Marcus Morris is a pretty solid option on FanDuel. $4,100, playing minutes in the mid-30s. I'm going to be above the field on Marcus Morris for the 3rd straight game. It's burned me about 3 straight times in a row. I think I'll be doing it again, but I like his price tag. He has an upside within him. I think if he can get to me the mid-20s fantasy points for the first time in the series, I'll be so happy with that at that price tag, but it can definitely happen. Now, the point guard situation for the Clippers is really interesting. We've seen Rondo play the whole 4th quarter, I believe 2 straight games in a row. He has been the true closer for this team, coming at $4,700. And if he's going to play that many minutes to close out a game, I'm going to have quite a bit of interest in him. Reggie Jackson continues to play mid-30s minutes, and he's not that terrible of an option just because of those minutes. And he played pretty well in the last game. So, and I believe he's been I think he's been a plus player while he's been on the court for this Clippers team throughout the series. I could be wrong, but he's a plus player on the Clippers for this whole series. I have a lot of interest on this Clippers team. If you want to, I'm not going to be interested in Zubac. So those minutes aren't there, and if Ibaka plays, that doesn't help him. But Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Reggie Jackson, Rondo, and Morris, I will be above the field somehow on all of those guys. I think I really like this Clippers team to go to. I think how you feel about the Celtics is how I feel about the Clippers.
I feel a similar way about the Clippers at the very least. Like Marcus Morris to me on FanDuel and on DraftKings, but on FanDuel in particular at 4,100, one of my favorite GPP plays of the day. Still like him on DK, but I just think he grades out a little bit better on FanDuel. On DraftKings, though, Reggie Jackson is my Marcus Morris for FanDuel. He's 4,400 on DK, only 20% ownership. If he's getting the start again, probably playing 30 minutes or more. Those are the first two guys that I want to get to from the Clippers. Not that I have a problem getting to Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. I don't really love Kawhi at 10-3 on FanDuel, but I don't have an issue with it. I think he's properly owned. On DraftKings, where those guys are 8,600 and 9,200, I think that they're both right about where they should be, somewhere in that 20 to 25% ownership range. Terrence Mann has been picking up some extra minutes. He's 3,600 on DK. If he's 4% owned, I think he works as a flyer in like large field GPP stuff. Nothing too crazy. I gave Rondo 25 minutes, 4,700 on FanDuel, 4,800 on DraftKings. I think because of the price tag, it's hard to go too crazy on him. You would need to see him maybe potentially move into the starting lineup, which I don't really think is going to be the case given the way game 3 went. So I see Rondo as like properly owned, right around 10%. There's not enough to me. You just need his salary to be a little bit lower. It's kind of boosted up more than it probably should be, which is exciting to me in a weird way because I assume people just play him blindly. Anything else you want to touch on from the Clips?
Yeah, so Patrick Beverley, I believe, played 7 minutes last game, did not see the floor in the second half. So there's a chance he might not play those minutes. The way they played in the second half was real Clippers basketball, and I think they're better off not playing Patrick Beverley at this point. I'm not the biggest Pat Bev fan whatsoever. So those minutes might get sprinkled around to guys like Terrence Mann and Rondo and Reggie Jackson, I'd say. Maybe Batum, get some Pat Bev minutes. We saw some really different lineups out there where they were running like Batum at the 5 and Morris and Mann, and it was a lot of different lineups that Ty Lue was throwing out there. Where I think Mann is a pretty solid option in terms of value. Terrence Mann has shown an upside when given the minutes pretty much all season long, but sharing the court with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard doesn't help. Maybe he leads the second unit in game 4.
Finally, for the Dallas Mavericks, there's actually a little bit more here to like for me than I was truly expecting. We've got Kristaps Porzingis at 6,900 on FanDuel, who hasn't been the best as of late, but to me, still a nice value at that price tag. Tim Hardaway's been playing monster minutes, 5,400 on FanDuel, 5,500 on DraftKings. He's probably my favorite overall Maverick across both sites. Maxi's price is slowly starting to climb, so he's not the same value he was, say, in game 1. And then do we have enough value out there to try to prioritize someone like Luka Doncic? 11.5 on FanDuel, 11.1 on DK. To me, that's a tough sell. Not that I don't like him. Clearly, he's fantastic, but
you got
to play a lot of garbage to get to Luka.
Yeah, you have to. And his price has gone up in the process, rightfully so. He's been absolutely amazing. And now, cause of concern for Luka. He's dealing with some sort of upper back injury. He's elevated price tag. There are a lot of studs who can have a similar upside as him. Guys like Harden, we talked about, at cheaper than him that you can put in your lineups instead of Luka. Luka, obviously, if you look at, I believe the last 90 seconds to 2 minutes of that game, I think Luka Doncic goes on like a 10 to 12 minute fantasy run. I think he hits like 2 or 3 3-pointers in a row to really elevate that fantasy performance to make it a lot more appealing than it actually was. Kind of like garbage time situation. So this leads me to the fact Porzingis is my favorite map to roster on both sides today. I think Porzingis is someone who obviously got criticized last game, was kind of a no-show. His rebound, I think, should go up. I think that shot attempt has room to go up. So I think Porzingis has an upside, and FanDuel $6,900, a very nice price tag to take advantage of where we can roster 2. I like him. $7,300 is not the craziest option over there on DraftKings where you can roster him at power forward and center eligibility. So Porzingis has a huge upside in him. He's obviously not shown that in some time. And if Luka is somehow hampering through some sort of injury, going to Porzingis makes a lot of sense for me. And therefore is my favorite Mav to go to. Other guys to go to, Tim Hardaway Jr. obviously is playing the minutes, shooting a lot of threes in this matchup, been shooting very efficiently for pretty much of the last month, has been a very effective shooter. Started off the year really poorly, but he's definitely turning himself around, effective insurance, shooting efficiency of late. The minutes are great, 38 minutes, 40 minutes. So yeah, if you want to go to Tim Hardaway Jr., $5,500 on DraftKings, 3-point bonus for him, and $5,400 on FanDuel. Don't mind it. Other guys who's been just getting the minutes, Dorian Finney-Smith, obviously a lot more of a tough option to go to, but in those minutes, he can definitely pay off that price tag, playing 38, 39 minutes. Tough not to love those minutes. The price tag is a little bit higher than I'd like, but that's how I feel about it in terms of the Mavs.
Final 30 seconds before we turn this one over to the live before lock crew. Who are your favorite plays for today's slate?
Today's slate favorite plays. Like I said, I'm fading the campaign. So favorite play on DraftKings, probably James Harden again. I like that. On FanDuel, it's going to be, I think it's going to be Kawhi Leonard. I really like Kawhi Leonard on both sides. If you were to narrow down one player, it's probably Kawhi Leonard.
There it is, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Deeper Dive. Please hit that like button one last time. That way we get credit for the likes and the Live Before Lock show does not. We got 1,500 people here, 366 likes. Don't go anywhere. Stay on this link. Live Before Lock is coming up right now. Good luck tonight, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. There's no rest for us. Doesn't matter that it's a holiday. We're bringing you all the goods again for tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Good afternoon, morning, if you will, depending on where you are around the country, around the world, as we welcome you into the Live Before Lock right before a juicy 4-game slate for you as we continue here, the first round of the NBA playoffs. Me, Eytan, that's the easy part, at Shander Show, the guy you want to be paying attention to for everything, because we are not only going to mine Eric Lindquist's mind when it comes to deep plays today on the slate, but also try and pick his brain about just how bettable his LA Clippers are later on today. What's happening, brother?
I like how they're my LA Clippers, even though like I've been a born and raised Minnesota sports fan, but that's the kind of stuff that betting can do to you when you start aligning yourself. I mean, I don't know, for the last year plus, it feels like, where I've been on the Clippers bandwagon, got absolutely demolished by it last year. That was unfun. Was hoping that this year would be a little bit different. Down 2-0 didn't feel great, but I still kept the faith. And it was nice to hear Rayen on the last show because he's pretty good at this whole thing. And I like hearing his confidence in them too.
Nice. All right. If we could build off of that. Now, we've got a lot of things happening today. We're going to look at, as lineups lock less than an hour, we're going to look at all the top positions, any injury news that pops in. But as always, the premium Slack is up and running, as is the super chat here on the stream. Already see the birthday wishes. I appreciate everybody for that one. And beyond that, of course, we also have a couple of cool things we always have for you, part of the Awesemo community. Awesemo Plus, $29.95. Just want you to like, to share what's happening here. Make sure you subscribe. These shows, the live before lock shows, as we kind of get you ready right in the final hour. You want to make sure you're here, or as Eric said, the show beforehand, where you're getting the deeper dive in both. So hit the notification bell that you don't miss anything. Today's show brought to you by No House Advantage. And let's look at this overall, right? We've got a couple of games here now where we understand the flow. We kind of understand a little bit more on minutes and rotation. So what's your overall big picture take today, E, when you look at this slate?
I mean, I think what it is it's just finding ways to get different without getting stupid. And I think that those are that's kind of the trend of the playoff slates and what I've been trying to really key in on. And it's not every single day that you're going to hit on some of these dudes. It's not every day is campaign day, even though it has been of late. But I'm trying to just find ways that make sense, telling a story, telling a narrative the way we do for Showdown, doing it for a 4-game slate. And I think there's actually, this might be the first slate we've had where we have some injury news that we're kind of waiting on. And I heard Rayen talk a little bit about Kemba Walker. He wanted to be over the field there. I just want to let it be known, you should have a Kemba Walker does not play plan in place, because I am very, very concerned about his health. You look at his box score the last 3 games, abysmal. I've been well over the field on him all 3 games. I'm really kind of worried based on what I've seen, based on what they were able to do going out 2-1 here. I think there's a very good chance, I would say a non-zero, more like 10 to 15% chance at least, which is large enough to have it in the back of your brain, that Kemba Walker doesn't play. I think that is a very real possibility. And that means that we should be looking at pretty much that entire team up and down to be able to react to some of that late news.
All right, well, let's do that. That's a great way to kind of start this. Now, we have a couple of other guys that we're kind of paying attention to as well, as far as whether or not the injury would hamper more so than whether or not guys would play. I know Luka still remains questionable and all, but let's look at that contingency plan. Come into this game, Eric, assuming that Kemba Walker is out. Now, how do you approach Boston? Jason Tatum is always going to be right there as far as chalky as it gets, but you mentioned starting to look at other areas and other avenues of exposure on this squad.
Yeah, so I mean, Kemba Walker, if you're just looking at him in a vacuum, he's over a fantasy point per minute on the season. Right now, projected for 32.5 minutes. That's kind of been the ballpark he's been at. Played, 27, 30, 34. You had a blowout in that second game, got up to 30, basically capped there. 34 in that last game, was pretty ineffective. He's gone 3 for 14, 5 for 11, 5 for 16 from the field. 5 personal fouls as well, 34 minutes there. I don't know, 20, 31.25, 19.25. I mean, this is almost the exact same thing we saw from him in the bubble last year, and he was not right. He basically wears down over the course of a season, gets here, and just doesn't have the pop against a good team. It's very, very disconcerting for me. Like, it's not a great spot to be like, I want to be really invested in him today. I've been over the field 3 times in a row because I've just trusted him to find a way to get it done, and it hasn't been there. And I just think there's something wrong there. And I could see Brad Stevens in a game where, obviously this is a must win 2-1. You go down 3-1 to Brooklyn, you're probably you're dead. And, there are already big dogs in this game, but he's not right. There's definitely something going on. He got pushed a little extra. I could see a place where if he doesn't look right, where he doesn't end up playing, and you could be looking at Marcus Smart would be the first guy that I really would want to be way, way, way over the field to 6,300. Not that it's just that usage. It's the fact that he can be the guy who's on the floor, for 45 minutes and if need be in a must-win game. You have guys like Aaron Nesmith who could be like your deep flyers in spots there. You've got up and down the lineup. Evan Fournier would be more meaningful there. Romeo Langford actually showed up and has like the ability to get some extra run there. Ended up putting up 16, played 27 minutes there in that last game. He would be a guy that you'd have some interest in, like out of the middle of nowhere. There is some interesting value that could be very, very thin underneath 4K that just kind of shows up out of the middle of nowhere. And I understand also the Wes Matthews take. I think that, if you're looking at ways to get off of Wes Matthews, if you're trying to like have that 3K spot there that you're going to be sitting on and just being able to incur a little bit more risk, depending on whether or not KCP plays or not as well. Another guy we got to bring up, but you could actually have some of those guys to be taking. I'm not saying take a 25% or 30% lineup allocation of them, but there is a path where Kemba does not play in this game, and I just want to be a little bit prepared for it because that could be a huge tournament edge.
Is ownership, and you mentioned the two right around 6K, right? DK has Fournier at 6K and then Smart just above him, right? 6,300. So
yeah, 6,300. And it's not like the minutes can really trend up further for Marcus Smart, but that's some opportunity. That's an assist rate boost. That's there's more production. I mean, that's 32 minutes of 34 to 33 minutes of Kemba Walker that's been showing up throughout this series that needs to get replaced. And so Romeo Langford was kind of the surprising guy that really kind of came out of nowhere for me. 27 minutes, ended up kind of facilitating, being kind of meaningful there. I would probably have a couple lineups in the same way that Rinpack talked on the previous show about having a plan in place for Wes Matthews. I kind of have a plan in place in the event that we get news here. Romeo Langford, 0.5 fantasy point per minute guy in the season. I'm not expecting big things out of him, but on these 3-game slates, if you can get 15, 17, 18 fantasy points out of a guy underneath 3,500, that's what you're trying to do. You don't need everybody to go off in your lineup. You just need to have that one guy who allows you to get to James Harden, Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, and have, their 60, 70 point upside.
Yeah. And I imagine that, look, it's a very different gap, right? Or big gap there in the pivot, but you could go with Fournier, who's significantly owned right now, looking at the ownership projections we have on Awesemo, just over 22%, 22.5%. Meanwhile, Langford, is going to be right there at the bottom, especially from a cost standpoint. So is that even worth looking as far as a gigantic pivot where you're basically cutting the cost in half?
Say that one more time for me. I'm sorry. I was kind of clicking over on something. Can you just
rephrase
that for me?
No worries. Just looking at the difference, like Fournier, you've got at 6K. Correct, and heavily owned right now. One of the top 5-10 guys we have on the ownership projections. And then you look much, much lower at the bottom, knowing that Langford, even with Walker ruled out, I can't imagine that Langford's ownership is going to shoot from where he is around like 3% to 30%. But that's why I was asking if it's worth that much of a pivot there to drop that cost basically in half to roll the dice with Langford, where you're taking advantage of Walker being out.
Yeah, and I think what I'm also doing is I'm boosting Clippers on that last game. I already think they're phenomenal plays. I think they're probably my favorite team to target on this entire slate as a whole, between Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, both of the studs, Kawhi and Paul George. But I think by having so much exposure to them, it shouldn't be too hard to be able to mix and match. I'm kind of boosting guys like Kleba and Dorian Finney-Smith and stuff like that. So I have the roster spots. I think the roster spots later that I could swap onto a guy like Langford or, getting to some of these other cheap pieces like that for me is really kind of the appeal of boosting it even further. They're already phenomenal plays. If I get stuck on Clippers, so be it. It's my favorite team already. And so the 3K Wes Matthews thing, I think you should have a little bit in the event that KCP does not play, but I really like getting to Langford or some of these other like really ancillary Boston Celtics pieces as like 1 or 2% guys that they will have no ownership. And if I get 27 minutes out of anybody at 3,300, they have to be on your radar.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I'm just curious, this game specifically, and we can apply it really to everybody involved here, although Walker clearly is the one that we're paying attention to from an injury standpoint. We'll talk about Luka. You mentioned out west with the Lakers as well. Can't imagine that Luka would sit at all. No. But looking at this game, this is the one game clearly from the line to just how this series has played out, where game flow would tell you that it's got the strongest chance of a blowout. I know Boston's riding high off of that one win. Great. Congratulations, Beantown. But the reality is that the series is over. So do you factor in, or can you, Eric, factor in that this could be like Langford could be playing even if Walker gets a run because they could be down by 25 in the second half?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was the exact thing that I loved campaign about for that game too, where he just erupted. And I talked about, I said, it's basically not a double dip. I think I probably put that in the wrong terms, but that was kind of what I was getting at, where there was an opportunity if Chris Paul was limited for him to play more meaningful minutes. And then there was also the opportunity that if it went to garbage time, he would be the main beneficiary. And so that's kind of what you're looking at with some of these other cheap pieces on the Celtics side. And again, this doesn't work out a million times out of a million. Plus, you have so many guys in that Clippers game, it doesn't really matter. I'm just saying that I would have a plan in place because I think there's an opportunity for it to kind of work out that way. And I'm still going to have a little bit of Kemba in the event that he does play. I mean, that's 30 plus minutes of a guy that I just traditionally love, who's over a fantasy point per minute player. But in the event that he's not there, just kind of know who it is that you would want to be targeting. That game is a long time from now. We've got 7 hours basically until that thing tips off. So I just want you to have it on your radar. Know that like Romeo Langford already is playing bigger minutes. And so I'm giving him that manual boost. Aaron Nesmith, another guy that could be kind of in that same conversation. He has played fewer minutes in the win, played 17 minutes and 19 minutes in the first two games of this series. If that went up to like 24 to 26, another guy at 3,100 to take some shots on underneath 5%.
Real quick, before we hit to the other contingency plan that you mentioned with CP3 and the number, I'm sure is reflecting a lot of concern here. Are you going to lay the points with the Nets? I'm inclined to do it with a major bounce back and kind of like just get this damn series over with type game today, knowing that it's not going to close, as far as that's concerned. Sorry.
I think one of the best bets on the board, if you really want to go that direction, go to Odd Shopper, take a look at all the goodies.
Yes.
But I think the first quarter Brooklyn bet is like such a lock. Like I love betting the first quarter. This Brooklyn team,
I love it.
When you're putting all three of them on the floor to start the game, when you're putting James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant for a 6-minute rotation, sign me up, because Jason Tatum is the only guy who can basically try to destroy you on that end. So, and they've been getting out to just crazy hot starts in this series. And, unless you get 50 spot from Jason Tatum, to end up kind of sneaking out game 3, like there's not a lot of hope for this Boston team. I think that they're all phenomenal DFS plays for our purposes, but that first quarter rotation, they all played together until the 4-minute mark there. They were 19. They started, 19-2 to get going on that. They had a huge lead there and then gave it away when they took, James Harden off the floor. Yeah. So yeah, just smash that first quarter. New York Nets. I don't even know what the line is. Probably doesn't even matter to me. I'm probably going to take it anyway.
Well, here's the thing. And first off, I absolutely love how your mind works, because there really isn't, especially in the NBA.
I love you. Honestly, no. Now I only want to do shows with you. Screw everybody else. They're dead to me. Like Spags, what an idiot. He has a puppet Lindquist. He loves me that much.
The guy won $53K the other day. He can't be that much of an idiot. It's good for me. Okay. Shit. I don't know. I'd take the day off the next day at least. But here's what I love about it. I'll back it up with substance. I'm not just, fluffing you up here for no reason, Eric.
All right.
The first quarter in the NBA is the real opportunity to capture game flow, narrative, bounce back from the last game. Runs happen. They happen either deep in the first or really in the second quarter, third quarter, a lot of times. So to take advantage of the first quarter is a beautiful thing when it comes to betting. So I do it a lot where I am in Philly all the time, and I get shit for it because it's like, come on, man, you're a degenerate. What are you talking about? First quarter spread. And I'm like, look, that's where you make your money. Real quick, just to follow that up, and Odd Shopper is where we go for everything. Oddshopper.awesemo.com, where you'll get all of the best bets available to you, courtesy of OddsShopper. They're going to do all the work for you so you don't have to sift and look and do all the research. The first quarter money line, you're going to get around 2-1 that you're going to lay for the Nets. But here's the thing. Why not lay 2.5 to 4.5, depending on how aggressive you are? You're going to get either a simple -110 to lay the 2.5 or 134 to 140 back for the 4.5. Just a thought.
Yeah, it's a small sample. I mean, a 12-minute quarter is a very, very small sample, even when we're talking about one game and we're going to talk recency bias. But if you're going to give me 2-1 even on the combination of Kyrie and James Harden and Kevin Durant being on the floor for the first 8 minutes of a game up against Jason Tatum and a bunch of scrubs, sounds great to me.
See, I'm not alone. Van Dam NYC, Eric speaking the truth. Mr.
Go.
Lindquist getting spicy on the chat there from Spencer. See?
Sorry about it.
We love it. We love it. All right.
That's what
Chris
I'm here
Paul, what the hell do we do here? I don't care if this guy
God.
comes out, he's knocking down every single jump shot in the pregame warmups. I would be inclined to stay as far away from him from a betting standpoint. I can't imagine that changes much from a DFS standpoint.
I'm at the field, and that's like, I'm shocked that I kind of landed on this because I've been very I have not been on Chris Paul very heavily the last, 2 games. I ended up even lowering him a little bit more coming out of game 2 as I just kind of started piecing together what I wanted to do there. And obviously campaign has been very, very awesome here in basically reliever duty constantly. But now that price has gone up to 5,400 over on DK and 5,900 over on FanDuel. If he's going to be closing out games, 33 and 27 minutes the last 2, he's a high usage guy, over a fantasy point per minute guy. I'm right at 5% of my DK allocation. I'm fine with that. That's going to be we've got him at for 2.4% right now. So I'm just double the field, and that's fine by me. But Chris Paul, I'm still at the field with. Make sure you have a group where you're not getting one or the other, just because I think that, campaign has his ceiling games as long as Chris Paul's limited. If Chris Paul's going to go out, play 36 minutes and actually be okay this time around, you're going to want him and not campaign.
Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, and I do. I do
Okay.
here. So I don't know. I'm not a doctor. And I always think when we try to break down what we are seeing in certain players or trying to, we just have to use a little bit of the eye test and a little bit of what we just see from the box score. Because I think the box score really tells us what the training staff combination of the coach says. Because my opinion, Eric Lindquist's opinion does not matter nearly as much as what the coach thinks for his minutes or what the coach thinks for his health. And so therefore, I got to think that they've been a little bit lighter on him here. Game 2, it got a little wonky there towards the end. Campaign made the big push to try to make it competitive. They ran him through the rest of the game, which made sense. Game 3 is really kind of what's concerning to me, where it's like, you kind of knew you needed to get that one 2-1. Now you could go down 3-1 here. I think Chris Paul is probably going to get extended a little bit more, even if he's not 100% here. And I think just him being on the floor can get it done in so many different ways, can set people up, is going to be ball handling well. I don't know if he has necessarily 25 actual point upside here, but I think that there's a number of other stats that he can contribute to be useful. And it's only a 4-game slate, and point guard isn't like in electric position outside of just the spend up. So if you're trying to go into that mid range and you're guessing between Kemba or Chris Paul, I think I still would rather side with Chris Paul in those 2.
I smell a segment. We've got the Dr. Ben Rasa money bet of
I'm nervous. Don't. I have enough.
Dr. Eric Lindquist injury dissection or something like we need a still shot of you in that old fashioned, hat, the doctor hat, and then the doctor coat. And then you're breaking down for like 90 to 120 seconds, somebody's elbow injury or their shoulder. You could do that. You could fake that.
Yeah, I could absolutely fake it. I'd be lying to the people. I don't know. I just know that Chris Paul had a huddle of people around him, very concerned in game 1, and has proceeded to look terrible. But I don't know the lingering effects of it. I just know that he hasn't been good the last 2, but his shoulder is still attached to his body and he's going to be starting, I'm assuming. So I gotta still be there.
All right, fair enough. I'm just saying, man, we could make that work. I just found out Ross is not even a real doctor. So look, all these things are new to me.
Wait. Take it back. Reverse it. You thought he was an actual doctor.
Yeah, I saw a couple of shows.
Oh, my dear God.
Comes on. He's got the glasses. He's got a very fixed, astute look to him. He comes out. He knows
speaks
his shit.
intelligently.
Yes,
There's that. Yes. Yeah.
So I thought, okay, this guy either is like truly an MD who's slumming it a couple of days a week with us, or maybe he's got like 6 or 7 PhDs and that's what he was referred to. So then I find out that it's all a bit by Spags.
Man, everything's a bit by Spags. My
Look,
existence
I fell
is
for
a
the
bit by
birthday
Spags
bit too. So what does that tell you?
Yeah, I was gonna say happy birthday,
idiot.
Shander. Yeah, Spencer S. Now I'm on high alert every time I see that, just to not be gullible, as gullible as what I am.
I love it. All right. Soul Dope 1234 on the super chat. Reminder, Awesemo Plus is how you get into the premium Slack. So you have questions for Eric as we lead you up about just under 40 minutes from now till the lineups lock. Awesemo Plus, it's $29.95 a week. It's easy, it's simple, and the beauty of it is that it's cheap. Now we have stuff for the NBA as well. The Awesemo Plus NBA Weekly package is $16.95, $4.95 for the NBA Weekly Express package, and that gives you full Awesemo Plus access to NBA content. But really, across the board, if you are playing and if you are involved in DFS activity, then you really should be part of the Awesemo Plus community. And then even then, we have things for you that we always give out for the Awesemo Plus Platinum community. But we have to get to Soul Dope 1234 up first. FanDuel, CP3, Cam Johnson, or Rondo Fournier for you, Eric.
All right, so Rondo, just that's kind of the tiebreaker for it. I mean, I'm probably going CP3 Johnson. Also having Fournier on the one side, I think it's just a strong play for the day. I think there's got to be other Celtics that put up points if Kemba's limited or doesn't play. And then Jason Tatum, you can't expect him to go out and just go completely nuclear like he did. That was so fun to watch. It was so fun to watch, but also at the same time, not likely to occur again. So we gotta think that there are other paths for other Celtics to get meaningful shots up, and that's going to be Evan Fournier.
All right, let's look. Anything else really from an injury standpoint at the top is Luka. But again, I mean, the guy's going to play, and I'm not going to say this is gamesmanship or anything along those lines, Eric, but I can't even imagine that we're dealing with anything close to a Chris Paul scenario where you're kind of looking around. This seems to be like, okay, he just happens to have a Q next to his name, but he's still going to play and he's going to be out there.
Yeah, same thing that we've seen from Anthony Davis and from all of these dudes constantly. They just always list them as questionable. And
like
it's
Tom
playoff
Brady.
time. You got to assume they're going to play. The one difference I'm going to say on why I'm worried about Kemba Walker as opposed to the other ones is just simply the fact of how limited he's been and how bad he's been, and the fact that it's a knee issue as opposed to, getting poked in the eye or having whatever happen that we've seen constantly from other dudes. And Chris Paul also is going to play through the Black Plague. Like he would just show up on a court. He would end up, if he had his shoulder not attached to his body, he'd still be like, well, I'm better one-handed, so it's fine. But yeah, Luka Doncic, same exact situation. Like he's going to play in this game. I would be completely floored and shocked. And again, I'll have so much exposure to this late game as is. And every single Dallas dude would be just completely in play. Porzingis would be your priority in the event that he did sit, but I do not think that it's likely. Even knowing this, like that's why I do think Porzingis is the one guy. FanDuel, he's already coming in with a bunch of ownership. You don't need me to tell you that. You don't need a chalk doctor or whatever I am to tell you that. But 7,300 over on
Chalk Doc.
Chalk Doc. Yeah. Oh God, that's not good.
Look at that. A segment is born. See?
I just got sad. All right. 7,300 though over on DraftKings. 7,300 over on DraftKings. Kristaps Porzingis, fire it up over on DK. I think that it's one of the guys that I really want to be way over the field to at that number underneath 20%. God damn it, Shander. Seriously. Chalk Doc.
I love it, man. Yeah. Look, this is
that's Ben's segment, though. We can't do that. This
is a show, though. Like this should be a 30-minute video on demand with you in a costume in front of a green screen. And if you need a co-host, I'm happy to help. But that's what I envision here is you taking over not one of these shows for a 20-second segment here. You deserve a 30-minute VOD, man.
Oh man. Yeah, Ben and I can have a Grey's Anatomy style back and forth, just walking, pacing the hallways, betting on things, logging in, playing the Buffalo slots over on Shmo Shmata, having some good times.
The Doctor Show. Isn't that something that went off the air? We could bring it back with you and Ben, see? Yeah. Now, Kristaps, not as heavily owned as you may think, right? 7,300 you mentioned on DK. and just under 17%. Yeah, do you think
feels
that
low
rises?
for a guy that it's just low for a guy who's playing mid 30s minutes that we know has the amount of upside? Just because you haven't seen it yet does not mean that it's not there. And now that it's 2-1, now that I don't know. There's just a feeling if you get any kind of a limited Luka Doncic, I mean, that number is now 11-1. It's much, much more cost prohibitive over on DK. I'm trying to get over the field by way of taking some shots on some really sketchy value that we've talked about already. But I really think that getting to 7,300 Kristaps Porzingis, and I have no problem playing them both together. I think that there's upside for both of them on the floor in this game. But I got to expect that he's going to get a 40 spot very, very soon. And I think you'll want to be invested over top of the field at under 20% over on DK.
Make sure you're following us here on Twitter at Shander Show, at Chalk Doc for Eric Lindquist. And I see this already. Look, Bino Amadeo, Chalky Hauser MD. I'm telling you, the stream is genius. All we needed is just to throw it out there, and they would take it and grow it like a microwave overnight. It's amazing. All right. Mike L on the super chat. FanDuel GPP 3v3 here. All right. You've got this lineup: Booker, Hunter, Tatum, Hardaway, KD, and as you just laid out, all of the beautiful reasons to go with Kristaps Porzingis.
Well, I love Tatum. I love Booker. But then, Hunter is super popular. So, I mean, Booker's going to be over on FD. If we're just talking about this ownership wise, I'll give you your $5 worth. So thank you so much. But 31%, he's the most expensive shooting or the most owned shooting guard. You go over to power forward. Tatum is the second most owned power forward. Small forward, you're getting different with Kevin Durant. And I love that. Hardaway is kind of fitting into a lot of lineups at shooting guard. He's the second most owned. So then it goes. So Hunter is like super popular. That first one is just too chalky for me. If you're doing a GPP, I think you'll have combinations if you're making a bunch of lineups. But if I'm making one lineup, give me the Hardaway, KD, Porzingis side.
Morgan 2024 or 2424, pardon me, DK on the premium Slack. And again, Awesemo Plus, where you can find everything there, part of the community, and you can be part of the premium Slack. And this is something that we can go back to this now in the other side of it, because we did hit hard on that first quarter with the Brooklyn Nets just pounding the Boston Celtics, but then guys start going to the bench and there's some deeper options. So Morgan asks on the premium Slack if we can touch on some of the secondary options for Brooklyn, like Brown, Harris, or Claxton, and where to be with them as far as exposure that you may have to your lineups.
So I think if you're building, I think there's two paths, and it's not so clear cut as in, what do you think? What is the option? I think that you really have to make a decision on whether this game stays close or not, because if it stays close, Bruce Brown only played 15 minutes last game. Landry Shamet only played 19. Nicholas Claxton played 16. I would expect if I were to take a shot between those three, I want Nicholas Claxton, the better fantasy point per minute producer, has the upside. You can slot him where you can play two centers over on DK, no problem. Tyler Johnson played 10 minutes. Just even seeing Tyler Johnson in the rotation there for a hot second at the end of the first quarter, going into the second quarter, he had a pretty long rotation for Tyler Johnson. I think just even seeing him for 10 minutes makes me a little nervous about playing Bruce Brown, Landry Shamet in any kind of a mass quantity. Now, both of them can go in and knock down threes. You're going to get wide open looks. We saw Joe Harris go berserk in game 2, knocking down everything he saw. And that's what happens when you're on a floor with Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving, when you're the fourth option and you just get unbelievable looks constantly. Like, that is going to be a path you could have it. It's hard for me to really advocate on any of them. Bruce Brown would really have to get hot. Landry Shamet would really have to get hot. But if this game gets wonky, I could see them getting a full fourth quarter rotation where those minutes would go from 15 to 22 to 24. I'm not going to be taking that. I'm hoping this game stays a little bit closer because I do have interest in some of these other Celtic pieces. I think Josh Engleman was talking quite a bit about that. I think it's pretty clear cut for me that the Clippers are my favorite team to target, and then the Celtics are number 2. But if you get that Kemba out news, that would flip-flop for me. It wouldn't be close. I would have all the Celtics in the world. But even still, I think this game stays a little bit closer than the 7. I could see the Nets, if I were going to be doing anything, we talked about why that first quarter would look so nice. But in terms of like other ancillary Nets options, not high on anybody here.
All right, speaking of the Clippers, two guys that have been consistently right there at the top as far as on our boom bust, the optimal lineup percentage and even ownership. And we're going to have to factor then in entirely when we're talking about building lineups and including how much one or maybe both Eric is using to anchor some lineups. The show today, of course, brought to you by No House Advantage, as we said from the jump. And this is just an amazing opportunity for you to make money off of player props across the board, all sports, NBA, baseball, football, golf, all for cash prizes. Over 500 player props, and you are always going to get the benefit of the doubt compared to the books. And if you look at the No House Advantage, they don't move, unlike the lines with the books. As they get closer and closer to tip or puck drop or first pitch, what have you, you're going to see books move. No House Advantage, you're locked in, and that's the beauty of it. And then on top of that, if you're in an area where you're waiting for it to become live, like I am here in PA, but you can bet globally or legally, then hey, take advantage of this as well. I'm telling you, Eric, this has been now the new Bible for me when it comes to player props. And this is what I do. I'll use this. Odd Shopper, of course, will always give you a nice advantage as well. And you can kind of balance the two. But a lot of times, if you just take a couple of minutes and you sort with the over or the under on No House Advantage, you'll find really solid projections that we have with Alex and No House Advantage, of course, that we all trust. And the books is just off. It's like, really, LeBron James PRA is, we have it predicted at 32.5, and the books have it at like 35.5. And you're thinking, all right, we'll smash the under. It's crazy how much I've been on a run simply using No House Advantage for my player props.
Yep. I'm right there with you. It looks like we've got a couple really, really nice ones. I think the James Harden one looks like a phenomenal spot to be invested in the under. I think because of the increase in minutes, a lot of the times we're seeing some of these larger numbers on guys, but we haven't seen enough court time. I don't think less than a 15 game sample size of James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant all being together is large enough. But James Harden, 84% expected win percentage, 26.5. Yeah. I really like the under on that. He's going to be a main distributor for this team. Obviously can get there, but more times than not, you're betting the numbers. You want to be taking a look at what the numbers are. And, you can play James Harden in DFS and take the under here and still have it pretty good both ways.
Yeah. And look, same thing with LeBron James, under 9.5 assists. We have it as an X-win percentage of 82%. And you could see a game flow clearly where he's more of the scorer as opposed to a facilitator in this type of game. And then people, oh, well, come on, best odds really on odd shot, minus 140, minus 150. Yes. And some bets are worth laying the juice. Some bets are worth just staying away, right? Not every bet needs to be made, but there's, I think, a misconception that you see a bet at minus 125 or minus 130 and you think immediately stay away. No. If you have a solid inkling of that returning, then you could either play it straight up or work it in a parlay. That's all.
Yeah, I think Jordan's got pulled up the NHA projections there too, which are phenomenal to have to go along with Odd Shopper, to go along with everything else. Those are free every single day. And if you're not invested over here at Awesemo Plus, which you definitely should be because it's a phenomenal environment. We have the Slack that's popping every single day, talking throughout the day about NBA, MLB, hockey, sports betting, everything you could possibly want all in one place. But if you're going to be wanting to get a taste of what's behind the paywall, I mean, those are free every single day. Utilize them over at NHA and party on, Garth.
I love it, man. Kawhi, Paul George, this is your squad, man. Are you anchoring the majority of your lineups? I'm sure with one of the two, but how many with both?
A couple. I guess I can just take a look and see, kind of just go team stack. We can take a look at this. Not that that's a conscious effort that I'm making. Yeah, I've got a couple here and there that have a little bit of both, but for the most part, I think on DraftKings, it's prioritizing Paul George for me. I think that just having those a little bit of savings, that's a big deal now. Back when they were both in the low 8K range, I mean, we've just been constantly talking be overweight. I think this is the first time where you could probably at least pump the brakes. You're starting to see everybody else's salaries, level out at the exact same spot on the top end. if I'm taking one of them, I gotta always prioritize Kawhi Leonard being the guy that, like, if I'm making one lineup going that direction. But because of his price over on DraftKings, Paul George, I think for me is I'm just getting a little bit more of, I need that money. But if I'm making one lineup, it's going to be Kawhi every time. And then over on FanDuel, small forward, we're looking to punt quite a bit in that spot. I mean, Kevin Durant and Kawhi are probably under-owned, but I don't really know how to get to like massive quantities of them. I am over the field at 25% on Kawhi Leonard, but that's not by much. Kevin Durant is so hard to get to, up at 10-6 on this slate with all three of them out there. You would really not just need like an outlier game, but you kind of need every other stud to fail, and he'd have to go for the 63 that we saw last time out. But it's so cost prohibitive when you have other studs that are substantially cheaper, and we have options like Joe Harris that you might need to punt with, Evan Fournier, DeAndre Hunter. There's good small forward options where we can save money, where shooting guard, there's just not really, like Devin Booker, Paul George, Marcus Smart, and then everybody else, James Harden. Those are all spend ups that you're going to be wanting to get to, and then it's really thin at shooting guard.
Yeah, I'm curious, as far as spending money or maybe even spending down a little bit at the center position. And I saw Eytan's name mentioned a bunch of times on the stream, and just looking at it, especially if you're approaching it, Eric, from the FanDuel perspective of one guy out there at that spot. Are you getting to Eytan much on a FanDuel scenario? Much easier in DraftKings, where you can work them with however confident you are in Julius Randle, or you mentioned Porzingis as well as a solid play, especially at that price point of 7,300 on DK. But just overall feelings on Eytan, really from FanDuel to DraftKings.
I love Eytan. He's my highest owned center. I also know how good he has been running in terms of foul trouble. For him to only have 2 fouls the last 2 times out, 3 in that first game, I mean, there's no question he has looked really, really good. He has been kind of the reason that the Suns are even remotely competitive in this series. Not that, we shouldn't be saying that about the 2 seed in the West. The West was absolutely stacked, but I don't think that they have any shot unless Eytan plays well in this series. And we've seen that for them to be competitive, that they've needed him to be really extended there. I got to think that he's going to get into foul trouble one time in the remaining couple games that we have in this series, whether that's 2 or 3, or whether this goes 7, which I think is doubtful at this point. But DeAndre Hunter, somebody that I think it's hard to get away from, but I do like taking a shot or two on the Frank Kaminsky side of it. I think having a lineup or two to just get completely different, where, Eytan plays 31, 32 minutes as opposed to 41, 42. I mean, those are some hefty numbers that we're seeing out of him. That's the main appeal. And then he's just been good. He's been very, very involved offensively, which we haven't seen. We've been begging for all season long. But that's the kind of play that you can get off of a little bit. I'm going heavier there on FanDuel and DraftKings. I think I have to, but in the lineups that I don't, at least I'm going to have a tiny bit, like maybe 4% of my lineups that I'm playing the foul trouble narrative.
Wow, Frank the Tank, 3K play on
3K.
DK, man.
Yeah,
that's
you want some weird. That's weird. How about that? But the other problem with him and Wes Matthews
of the
too.
Chalk Doc. Sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. I'm trying to buck this nickname. It's not going to happen. But
well, you created it. There's no way you can escape it now.
Well, hang on. But here's the thing too: is that there's some of these slates that we got on these 12 gamers as the last like month and a half of the season, where the chalk was just so good, and you were trying to find ways not to play phenomenal plays. And I just kept saying over and over again that it's like, if you look what every one of the top 150 maxers in the entire industry are doing, they are jamming most of these guys to an outrageous extent. And then they're mixing and matching their pieces that they really like as the lower owned dudes. And, it's just because when you have an 8-man rotation, when you have 8 active players or something like that, you are very limited in terms of, like, if you're not fading or if you're not playing them, the other options you're going to are just substantially worse. That is not the case in the playoffs, where we're seeing the top end, where we're seeing the rotational guys all play substantial minutes. We're trying to pick hairs on, like, okay, if Luka goes for 70 and Kevin Durant goes for 70, how do we get them in lineups together? You play the guy who's 3,300 or 3K flat like Kaminsky or Wes Matthews or whomever else you're choosing, and you're hoping that they get you to 15.
And I love it. And just to kind of balance that out with where we are in ownership projections, there are some pretty heavily cost guys that are super low owned. And I wonder if it gets closer and closer as we're 18 minutes away from these lineups all locking if that may be a factor to kind of swing you back from maybe initially avoiding a guy like Harden or even LeBron, a little lesser of a cost there, looking up and saying, wow, these guys are only 13 to 14 to maybe 15% owned.
Yeah, I think pick your guys. You get to kind of choose, because I can make a case for just about every single one of these studs. I want to be a little sensitive to price. Like Luka Doncic 11.5 on FanDuel, James Harden 11K. Going to be very rare and borderline difficult to get both of them into a lineup together, and really like the way that it rounds out. Kevin Durant, because it's at small forward, I think would make more sense. I would rather go to more of him than James Harden, because 11K, again, it's just very difficult. You would need some big time stuff up top. But I gotta feel like I gotta have like an inkling that, if you're going to take some shots on the mid range of guys, like right now, you're getting Trae Young at 8,800. He's 20%. That's about right. So do you want to be like completely overweight to somebody in that place? Like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you get to kind of make the decisions based on what your roster construction is, what your level of risk tolerance is. Like for me, I can tolerate a lot of risk in my lineups, and I'm happy to have some really sketchy plays down at 3K. But if you're making 10 lineups and you're trying to grind it in a way where it makes sense to have positive EV lineups, you're not going to be doing stuff like that. That's not kind of going to be the way you should go about building your lineups. And I wouldn't advocate for that. That's pretty risky to be doing it that way. But in the long run, the times that it does work out, I think it actually kind of flips the scale on it. And then just on this top end, like Anthony Davis right now, he's questionable. He's going to play 10-2. That's a guy that I just want to be 30 to 40% on like 1 to 2x on the field, just because of the amount of upside that exists there. 1.31 FanDuel points per minute. And we're just seeing ownership flat at 20% compared to some of these other studs that are coming in a little bit more. Julius Randle, Trae Young, Kyrie Irving. I just think the upside's there in a more meaningful way.
How about the 4 and a little flexibility clearly on DraftKings, a little more locked in, right, with FanDuel, but just looking at where we have some ownership now at that on DraftKings, where you do have a couple of guys that are locked in. Clearly there's going to be chalk for days with Jason Tatum, but you start to look around, especially some guys who are a little bit flexible with 2 spots that you can move up and down in the lineup. And, Maxey in Dallas and Morris in LA are the 2 next top owned guys. So I wonder if there's some value in taking advantage of that, or maybe the ownership creeps up to a point where you may look even deeper, like a Gallinari type.
Oh, Gallinari.
No,
yeah.
Staying away.
No,
I was going to say Saric, but I figured that would elicit an even worse response.
No, this is really just finding. So what would the chalk build be today? That's kind of another way to look at it. I mean, if you play cash, you already have a cash lineup, and you can find out kind of where your pivots would be. I don't play cash, especially this time of this time of the year. That would not be something that would interest me whatsoever. But I gotta assume that if you're just looking at it from a points per dollar perspective, like your chalk build, like if you're looking to like,
do you want to build a chalk lineup right now? Is that what we're doing?
Well, no, I'm clicking over and then just kind of taking a look point per dollar. If you're trying to figure out where you would want to go, I think Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, one of the 2 would have to be in your lineup on DK. So I think if you don't play one of those 2, you're probably different than most of the field in this spot. Let's see. Like I was doing my FanDuel stuff, so I'm going to actually talk about it from this perspective for now. You just kind of like group it. Evan Fournier would be in that lineup. Devin Booker would be in that lineup. Kemba Walker, probably, depending on what you think about his health or what his spot is going to be. He's dealing with the left knee soreness, but he's 6,500, which is a crazy number. He would probably go in the lineup. And Kristaps Porzingis at 6,900 would be in that lineup. You could just group it by the most owned dudes. And the reason that they're the most owned is because they're providing you value to mix and match the studs. And that's where the studs are coming in. Like there's nobody who's above on FanDuel. There's nobody above 8,400. Kyrie Irving, he's 6th in ownership. He's your highest owned there because it's just mixing and matching with these top value pieces, the studs that you prioritize or who kind of fits into your builds. So like finding ways to get different, like without getting stupid. That was kind of the theme that I had coming into this. Like for me, I'm not trying to be stupid, but I'm trying to tell a story with some of my lineups. Like, if Nicholas Claxton can get to 20 minutes, that would be a gigantic thing for me on DraftKings specifically. If I can get a little bit of exposure on Romeo Langford, and he ends up kind of getting a little bit extra run if Kemba's limited or if he doesn't play or whatever else. Like, I think that there's a path where that really helps your lineups and can move you up in tournaments and give you a differentiating piece that nobody else has. So like, you can take the safety of playing somebody in that mid-range, like you said, Saric or whomever else, like somebody.
No.
Or like, yeah, that's
Gallinari
not
over
safety to me,
Saric.
though. Yeah, Gallinari for sure. Yeah.
Right.
So like you can play somebody like that. DeAndre Hunter comes to mind, but if you really want to get a different lineup construction, you got to do different things and really take some risk.
All right, as we continue to get you closer here, 13 minutes away. Taj on FanDuel or Noel, Devin RJJ on the premium Slack. Again, $29.95 a week. That's how you get in the premium Slack. Have a couple I want to get to here, Eric, before we get out of here. And look, by the way, that mantra that you said as far as smart, not stupid, that sounds like it would come from a doctor.
Oh, thank you.
See, you could fool someone like Rasa's been fooling people, right?
Oh, yeah. No, he's a con man, that guy.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, if that's the case, and look, he got me, but like I said, I'm clearly the most gullible person, at least right now on the channel. Taj on FanDuel or Noel from Devin RJJ on the premium Slack.
Taj Gibson. Okay. So, I mean, this has been very, very frustrating. Obviously, I didn't know that Nerlens Noel was going to be under 1%, or otherwise we could have been on that side of it. I just thought that there was a very good chance Nerlens Noel didn't even play in the last game. I think he's for sure going to be playing in this one. Taj Gibson, though, is $200 less. We're already seeing a decent enough amount of ownership on Noel that I think I got to side with Taj Gibson.
All right. And also Julius Randle. I mean, we haven't really spoke about him. Derrick Rose as well, being asked by Jeremiah Johnson, kind of in grouping there between those two, and especially looking at how the slate plays out, if it's worth a risk getting to Randle in a bunch of your lineups. And then I'm sure Rose becomes an option for a pivot at the point. Yeah.
If we're going to talk about Kristaps Porzingis being bad so far, Julius Randle, a much more meaningful piece of his team comparatively, and has been Garbaggio. 8,900. It's been the Derrick Rose show. They've basically kind of keyed in on Julius Randle and made his life miserable. That last game, I could not imagine somebody looking worse on a basketball floor. 2 for 15. It actually somehow looked even worse than that. I didn't think he was going to make a shot the entire game. Didn't really have any confidence. But if you told me the switch were going to flip, I would not be shocked whatsoever. I'm at the field. I'm not making any kind of a stance there whatsoever. I have 20% over on FanDuel. Feel really good about that. I don't think that he's going to be somebody at 8,900 that you wouldn't want to have exposure to. But the problem is everybody else's minutes, like all these other studs around him, now are playing the kind of minutes he was already playing in the regular season. So he doesn't jump out in a meaningful way, especially when the game environment is as bad as what that is compared to the other spots on this slate.
All right. And a reminder here is we have some awesome things, continue to tell you about the great things that we have available to you, but we also want to give back here. And that's the Awesemo Hall of Fame, where you can win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. It's simple. You just download the Awesemo profile pick. That's awesemo.com/avatar. Place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 contestants. Look this morning to, no surprise, all of my lineups right there at the bottom of the list, because I don't know my ass from my elbow. And then I'm looking, because you always want to see who wins it, right? Right there at the top. And there are a bunch of Awesemo. I was going to send a screenshot of mine to kind of slide in there at the end, really subtle, to see if you picked that up to Jordan, but he's working hard enough. But yeah, we constantly see it, right? I mean, constantly, every day, for whatever sport, there's always a profile pick up there in the top 5, top 3, or number 1 with the Awesemo. So we want to give back. That's it. Tweet the wins to at Awesemo HOF. And again, you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. It's going to be me one day. I'm not giving up.
It's coming.
Maybe.
It's
Maybe
coming,
it-
baby.
maybe
It's coming.
Maybe.
You got to ride the wave. Ride the wave. Spags has been riding the wave for a while. He's been putting in that work. Again, just so awesome. But that's a story for tomorrow. I want to get it out of my system now so that I don't have to compliment him tomorrow.
Well, you know that's coming though, right? Or is he
yeah.
going to drill you, or is he going to like subtly bring it up to the point where you're boxed in a corner and you're going to have to compliment him?
Yeah, I'm screwed. It's whatever. It's whatever.
Yeah,
I gotta get better. I gotta get better. This is a
Just win
results-based
today.
industry at this point. I mean, it's process-based, but like results are what we're all aiming for. He got the result. I love it.
but just win today. Eric, if you won 45K, even a little less than what Spags won, you would still be the most recent winner on the show. So you'd kind of trump it, right? You kind of.
Well, I'm going to win the 100K on FanDuel tonight, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, beautiful. So I'll just one up him. That's kind of the goal. Just jump over.
Fournier and Tatum. Are you playing any Celtics together today and in much of or all your lineups?
Yes, you should play Celtics together. You should have no rules, especially now that we don't have Robert Williams and Tristan Thompson. It was very nice to not have to go plug that into Fantasy Cruncher or screw around with that at all. Not that it would ever show up on FanDuel together because you can only play one center, but on DraftKings, there were times when I was getting a little bit of both of them because I generally tend to overproject Tristan Thompson compared to what the field does, compared to what Awesemo does. I tend to have a little bit more of him. Still a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy over on DraftKings, 5,200, going to play 30 minutes. You would expect like that is a good spot to have where you can play two centers. I think FanDuel is more difficult because you're talking about him compared to Clint Capella and DeAndre Ayton, but those are only really two plays. If either of those two fail and you have Tristan Thompson at 5,900, you're looking at a different lineup build. So I have 20% of him over there. That's directly at the field as well. But Taj Gibson would be like the last center play. I only have exposure to 4 centers on FanDuel today. I would find it very unlikely. Like Andre Drummond is the one guy I think could go out and really burn you if you were to somehow get more run, but it just seems unlikely. For me at this point in time, it doesn't seem like they really want to go crazy with him. He's played 19, 24, and 20 minutes. But even in 20 minutes, he's an amazing fantasy point per minute producer and could find a way to get to 35 or 40. And you'd need him if the other guys fail. But I think that that's unlikely enough. In 6,600, I would rather just go cheaper to Tristan.
How about the other LA team, LeBron, AD? How often are you getting to both, if not just either one of these two?
So my main lineup over on DraftKings right now has LeBron James. I'm not sure if I'm going to be sticking on that or not. It kind of depends. I'm going to look at it. I've got plenty of time to be able to adjust as we go. It's going to be LeBron James or Anthony Davis in my main lineup. And I feel pretty confident, 9,700, 9,500 on DraftKings, getting to a little bit of both. But 36, 39, 30 minutes, we're not concerned about LeBron James in the playoffs. Like he's kind of just been able to coast and he's been LeBron James, but there's going to be a game where he, gets that one extra assist. The last 2 games, 9 assists each. The one tough thing for me is imagining a game where he's going to get a double-double and really has like triple-double upside here because Anthony Davis on the floor, Andre Drummond on the floor, pretty good rebounders, I would say. And so it's tough to really see him. He's getting out in the break and getting out and running. But I think that there's just a triple-double upside that still exists there. It's LeBron James, and you're getting him under 10K, and it's the playoffs, and you're going to have a huge game, time to rock.
Yeah, and I'm just, as we kind of wind down here, I wanted to go back to the big 3 specifically because all over, by the way, and I've pounded it a couple of different ways here now locally in PA, the Nets to take advantage of not only the first quarter, but even the first half. I think there's victimization out there, courtesy of that bet by Eric Lindquist, by the way. If it hits, if it misses, then I don't know. We'll all take blame for it. But
no,
just look.
No, I take no responsibility for anything.
None? For anything.
No,
You're
I'll take
absolved.
Yeah.
How did you get that? Is that in your contract?
Well, no, if you super chat us, then I feel responsibility to you.
Fair enough.
If you don't, screw it. I don't.
Fair enough. But the big 3, now, clearly there's a difference in price when you look at it, and Harden is going to be the obvious heavy chalk as we wind down here, Doc. But beyond that,
wait, you said Harden is going to be?
Well, as far as cost, I'm just talking about.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Pardon me. Thank you for clarifying, because I'm sure other people.
Harden is not chalk.
No, not chalk. But you're and specifically speaking, ownership wise, not at all. But Kyrie, how workable is Kyrie now at 8,500? Because Durant and Harden are going to have that heavy tag. Even Durant just under 10K, but Kyrie at 8,500. That's a pretty significant drop from the other two.
But it's appropriate. Like that's what we should have seen happen. This is not like revelatory. And I see the ownership going there and I get it. Like I totally get it. I'm under the field on Kyrie on both sites. I talked about him being like in the cash build. That's kind of a result if you want to play the highest owned dudes and kind of absolve yourself of some of that risk in cash. And, Kyrie is not, I wouldn't say 8,400 even on FanDuel for him is underpriced. I wouldn't say 8,500 for DraftKings is underpriced. He's playing on a floor with James Harden and Kevin Durant. What did you expect to happen? Like, was he going to be a 9K player for the next however long? Now, that being said, he has upside for 50, 60, 65. Like he has the upside for it. But if you're saying on a median projection basis, you would expect for Kyrie to be anything other than a 7,500 player alongside two of the most offensive, like usage potent dudes in the entire league, I'd say you were crazy. And now, you know, he is the, like, without question in my mind, the third fiddle. Now, James Harden can get his own shot off. He can also involve Kyrie Irving in a way, but Kyrie is so scoring dependent compared to the other two there too. Kyrie has to get there in terms of points. And that just makes me want to be lighter in tournaments on a guy who's already coming in with pretty meaningful ownership. I'll take my shots elsewhere. And so that's a good thing you brought him up, because that's one of my stands today.
Love it. See, we're thinking on the same line here, and I'm just trying to follow the medical advice, man. That's it. You lay it out here, and I'll follow. That's
God. I have 0% Kyrie Irving on DraftKings. I just looked at that. Yeah, I have 15% on FanDuel.
Wow.
Actually, in my next run here, it's going to be less, which is basically cutting the field in half. But yeah, I have 0% Kyrie on DraftKings.
You flatlined Kyrie at DraftKings.
I flatlined him. 100 lineups, 0 Kyrie.
It's red line for everybody else, but for the doctor, it's flat line. See, we even apply the proper terminology. Tim Hardaway Jr., is he a likely pivot at the 2 or 3 for a George/Leonard?
Hang on, say that again.
Tim Hardaway Jr., can you get to a pivot there? Because you can flex him on the 2 or the 3 on DraftKings as far as a pivot for either George or Leonard.
In my brain, when you said the 2 or the 3, I thought we were talking salary in some way, and you were talking basketball floor and positions, shooting guard, small forward. No, it's great. No, I love this. It keeps me accountable that I'm making sure I listen to you. And
it wasn't a medical term. I apologize.
Yeah. I mean, Evan Fournier for 500 more on DraftKings, yay. Joe Harris, 300 less on DraftKings, yay. Tim Hardaway, he's fine. We know the kind of upside he can have. You're getting 40 plus upside, a guy who can go out and just shoot the world on fire. For underneath 6K, you always got to have some appeal there. The ownership isn't like outrageous on him here at the moment. Like it could get up a little bit higher here as we're getting closer, but you know, round 23, I would be just fine taking that being my stand. Yeah, that completely makes sense. But if you're looking for a pivot in that exact same salary range, those would be the other two. If you're talking about the exact same salary, if it's like somebody that you're putting in your flex or down at a guard position, let me see. Yeah, I don't see a ton that I would be like, oh, that would be the pivot off of Tim Hardaway. Like Tristan Thompson, I like more at 5,200 for 300 less. I just think he's a little bit more secure. But risky, Cameron Payne would be very risky, and I wouldn't want to do that today.
And just to be clear, you are laying the 3 in Dallas later tonight, correct?
No comment.
What?
No comment. I mean, I'm so invested in the Clippers already. It's not like, what am I going to do? Put more money into a furnace?
Yeah, no. You have to bet your way out of this, man. What are you talking about?
No, that is not how we do things here at Awesemo.com. We do not dig holes. We get out of holes.
We climb out of them.
Yeah, we climb
Absolutely.
out of them.
We pull other people out of holes here. You're going to be pulling me out of a hole if the Clippers win this game. Let me just say that. All right.
Well, go Clips. I know that.
I know you will be watching and definitely live betting the hell out of that by all means.
Yes, I will.
Is there anything else real quick on the way out? Is there anything else? I mean, the Knicks lines moved a little bit, 4.5, now up to 5. I'm kind of inclined to go over that total if I can wait maybe half of the first quarter. Knicks Hawks seems to be more of a live bet. I just don't know, but you seem from a DFS standpoint a little more confident in Chris Paul than I am from a betting standpoint. So I will side with you on that. But the one pre-flop bet that I really like, I think, is the Lakers -6.5, just because they're at home. And I don't know how bad Phoenix would have to be up in the first half for me to really lose some value on the board.
I love going to the Lakers side. I was heavy on the Lakers games 1 and 2. Game 3, I actually didn't even take a side, which was probably pretty stupid of me at that point in time. I feel pretty good about it again here in game 4. So yeah, 6.5, love that number, but best of luck to everybody. Have a blast today. It's a nice Sunday to be taking in some hoops, and enjoy your Memorial Day tomorrow. We'll be back.
Awesome. We got a lot of stuff still happening on the channel. NASCAR live before lock, then the NBA live before lock. I'll be back with you tonight at 6 with Terry for that. 4 games, We've got you all prepared here. Thank you, Jordan. Great job as always, sir. And thank you all out there for being a part of the community. Make sure you're following us all on Twitter at Shander Show, at Eric Lindquist. That's going to be, if it's not already, a fake account Chalk Doc is going to be out very, very soon. I'm sure of it. And that Awesemo NBA as well. Thank you all. Have a great day and good luck.